I think one of the hardest decisions about changing your life is that sometimes you have to make the decision before you have any real proof that it's actually going to work out for you. And I don't mean making reckless decisions or ignoring your reality. I mean, in those moments where something in you knows you can't keep living the same way, but the new direction still feels uncertain. There isn't a guarantee yet. There isn't a perfect result that you can point to. There might not even be a lot of people around you that fully understand what you're doing. I think that's where self trust gets tested. It's easy to believe in yourself once everything has worked out. It's a lot harder when you're still in the middle of becoming the person that can create the result. I'm living through this right now through building my business and trusting that the work that I do put in is going to eventually create stability for myself and so that I can actually live in a way that suits the person that I am and the ways that I can work properly. So that is something that I'm living through right now. If we haven't met yet, I'm Alaina. I created Align with Alaina as a space for women who are trying to leave survival mode, reconnect with themselves, and trust their own voice again, as well as building a life that actually feels like your own. One thing that I want to be really intentional about this channel is that I'm not talking about these things from some perfect place where I have everything all figured out. A lot of what I share here is what I'm actively learning in my own life. So if you're in that kind of season 2 where you're changing, rebuilding, questioning old patterns, and trying to figure out what you actually want, go ahead and subscribe and stay for these conversations. For a long time, I think I was living on autopilot more than I realized. And when I say autopilot, I don't mean that I wasn't working hard. I was working really hard, probably too hard. I was constantly thinking about the next thing, the next problem, the next bill, whatever situation was coming up that I had to manage, or the next thing that I should just push through. I think I got so used to functioning that way that I started confusing it with being responsible. Like, if I wasn't overwhelmed, if I wasn't exhausted, and if I wasn't constantly doing something, then maybe I wasn't doing enough. And looking back, I can see how much of my life became focused on everything outside of me. How do I manage this? How do I get through that? How do I make enough? How do I keep everything together? And how do I make sure that everyone else is okay? Eventually, you can get so focused on managing your life that you actually stop living inside of your own life itself. When I'm on autopilot, I'm everywhere except where I actually am. I know that my body is sitting in one place, but mentally I'm already 10 steps ahead trying to figure out if something can go wrong. And when you live that way long enough, it gets really hard to hear yourself. Something I'm working through now is just being calmer with the way I think about money. It doesn't have to have such a tight grip over me. Basically, I should be running money and money should not be running me. I would be on autopilot in work situations, and even now with more of my writing and filming and doing other creative work, I still have to take the time to try to slow down and bring myself back to the present moment. Even now, recording this, it's like I have to still bring myself back. Like, hey, I'm here, I'm doing this now, I'm safe. I don't have to rush through this. Another thing when I'm on autopilot is that I know my boundaries slip like crazy with myself and with other people. And I know I will start allowing other people in, having way too much access to me. And then I don't realize it's happening until I have neglected myself to the point of feeling like I have to do 1,000 things to get myself back on track. Another thing that I have had to unlearn is this belief that success had to feel exhausting. I don't even know if I consciously believed that, but I lived like I did. I would keep pushing harder. I would work more and pick up more hours, even though I already felt maxed out. I would just keep going, keep forcing. I had actually fell and fractured my foot, and I was back to work on my feet cutting hair with the fractured foot. Like, I was like, when is this going to, like, when am I going to just chill, to really just chill? I just was not slowing down at all. I felt like if I was tired, I still had to keep going. There was a part of me that I realize now that believed if I overwhelmed myself enough that I would eventually earn the life that I wanted. And the strange thing about that is that you can work incredibly hard and still be putting your energy into things that aren't actually moving you forward in your life. That has been a big realization for me. I don't want to stop being ambitious. I don't want to stop creating. And I definitely don't want to stop working towards things. I also don't want to use suffering as proof that I committed. There's a difference between working hard because something matters to you and constantly exhausting yourself because somewhere inside you believe you have to earn your right to succeed. I'm learning that you don't have to push and shove and force your way through every part of life. Maybe some of the things that I want are actually going to require patience, and maybe they're going to require consistency. Maybe they're going to require me to make better decisions instead of just more decisions. And maybe I need to let the right things compound instead of constantly panicking because they didn't happen immediately. And this is where trusting myself before I have proof has become very real for me. Because I'm building a business, I'm making decisions every day, I'm creating content, I'm writing, I'm building resources, I'm trying to create income in a way that actually fits the kind of life I want. And I don't have every result yet. There are still things I'm waiting to see. There are still days when fear shows up. There are still moments where I think to myself, what if this doesn't work out? What should I be doing more of? And what if I'm moving too slowly? What if someone looks at my life right now and thinks I'm failing? I sat down and I journaled out questions before this video, and I want to be a little vulnerable with you guys and share that some of my fears that I wasn't even realizing I was having was I thought people would think that this new lifestyle of mine, people would think that I was lazy or I was unrealistic. Um, I was thinking people would think I'm incapable or selfish because of how I'm choosing to move now. I think that is all the stuff people choose to not talk about. Sometimes choosing what feels right for you doesn't immediately look impressive from the outside. Sometimes it looks like making less money for a while. Sometimes it looks like slowing down. Sometimes it looks like saying no to things that technically make sense. Sometimes it looks like creating space when everyone else thinks that you should be doing more. Sometimes it looks like being willing to look like you're losing for a little while because you're trying to stop building your life around these short term fears. That is uncomfortable. But I think that's where self trust starts actually becoming real. One thing I had to be really honest about myself was about how often I have looked outside of myself before I allowed to trust what I actually felt. I was constantly thinking, what does this person think? Will they understand? Does this look responsible? Does this make sense? Can I defend this decision? Do I have enough proof yet? And I think at some point I had to ask myself, why does everybody get a vote before I do? Because there are people that I deeply love and they may never fully understand the choices I make. And I don't think that makes them bad. They have their own experiences and they have their own fears. They have their own beliefs about work, money, success, safety, relationships, and what life should actually look like. And I have mine. Growing up for me has meant realizing that I can love someone without inheriting every belief that they have. I can understand where someone is coming from without making their fear my decision. I can let someone disagree with me without automatically assuming that I must be wrong. Disagreement used to be very scary for me because to me that felt like I wasn't loved or accepted or I was doing things the wrong way if people were disagreeing with me. I used to over explain every single decision that I did to make sure that I was getting some sort of validation. But I'm learning that the more I learn to actually trust myself, the less defensive I have to be. I don't have to keep convincing everybody. They can choose what feels right for their life, and I can choose what feels right for mine. I think this is an important distinction. Trusting yourself does not mean convincing yourself that every decision you make is going to be perfect. That's not realistic. I'm going to be wrong sometimes. I'm going to make choices that I later change my mind about. I'm going to try things that don't work out. I'm going to misunderstand situations. That's a part of being alive. But I'm starting to understand that self-trust isn't, I always know I'll make the right decision. It's, I trust myself enough to respond if the decision turns out differently than I hoped. That feels completely different. Because if I can trust myself to course correct, then I don't need a guarantee before I move. If I can trust myself to admit that something's not working, then I don't have to stay somewhere forever just because I'm embarrassed to change my mind. If I can trust myself to learn, then making a mistake doesn't prove that I should never listen to myself again. That is something I really wish I had understood earlier. You don't have to put every decision you have made on trial just because fear showed up. Fear is allowed to be there. Doubt is allowed to be there. You can still keep moving. I've also been thinking about how some of the behaviors we criticize in ourselves probably started for a reason. Overworking, overthinking, people pleasing, trying to predict everyone's reactions, constantly proving yourself, always needing to be productive, second guessing your choices. Sometimes those things helped us feel safe. Sometimes they helped us get to the next chapter. And I think there's something really compassionate about being able to say, I understand why I learned this, but I don't necessarily need it moving forward. That has been part of the process for me too. There are old ways of thinking, operating that I don't want to drag into every new chapter of my life. And I don't think growth is always about adding something else, another routine or habit, another goal, trying to fix something. Sometimes it's not necessarily about doing more. It's about releasing what was never ours to hold on to. I think for me, that has meant letting go of the belief that I have to exhaust myself to be worthy of success. Letting go of the idea that I have to earn everyone's approval before I trust myself. Letting go of the idea that peace means I'm not doing enough. And letting go of some of the suffering I had gotten so used to carrying that I thought it was just part of who I was. This might sound simple, but I'm also learning to trust the moments when I can actually feel calm. Because when you've been used to ups and downs, urgency, stress, and constantly waiting for the next thing to happen, peace can almost feel unfamiliar. And sometimes unfamiliar things can make us suspicious. Sometimes when the peace actually kicks in, our brain goes back to, shouldn't I be doing something? Did I forget something? Am I falling behind? But what if nothing is actually wrong? What if I'm just finally not operating from an emergency? That's something I'm trying to practice. Slowing down, sitting somewhere and actually just being there, journaling and letting myself stay with one thought instead of immediately jumping to 5 others. Going outside, noticing what's good, smiling more, and letting myself feel gratitude. Not because I'm pretending everything in my life is perfect, because it isn't, but because I don't want to spend my entire life waiting for the future and miss the fact that I'm alive right now. And I think that that's becoming part of my definition of success too. I don't want to just build a life that looks successful. I want to build a life that I can actually be present enough to experience. Maybe your version of this looks completely different than mine. Maybe you're thinking about changing a career, you're building something, questioning a relationship. Maybe you're starting to realize that some of the beliefs you've carried for years aren't actually yours. Maybe you just know that you're tired of making every decision based off of fear. I want to give you a few things to sit with, and you don't need perfect answers. Just notice what comes up. What am I waiting to have proof of before I allow myself to trust what I already feel? Whose approval am I still treating like permission? What behavior once protected me but may not need to run my life anymore? And maybe the biggest one, if I could trust that I could handle whatever happens next, even if I made a mistake, what would I choose differently? If one of those questions brought something up immediately, that one might be the one worth spending some time with. If you feel comfortable, go ahead and share with me in the comments what self trust looks like for you right now. It can be something tiny, something as small as saying no, starting something new, slowing down, or finally taking your own idea seriously. Honestly, I would genuinely love to hear it. This is really why I created my channel and Align with Alaina. A lot of the resources came from me trying to work through these things and all of these same questions in my own life. If you're listening to this and you're not sure exactly where you are right now, you just kind of know you feel exhausted, disconnected from yourself, or like you've been functioning on autopilot, I would start with my free survival mode self check. You'll find it down below in the description. It's designed to help you recognize some of the ways survival mode might be showing up in your life and how to identify one small place to begin. If you already know that you need to go deeper, I do have guided workbooks and journals for taking your first step, choosing yourself again, rebuilding self trust, and creating a path forward. I'll put everything down below. You don't have to buy anything, just use what actually meets you where you are right now. If you take anything from this video, I want it to be this: you don't have to prove before you start taking yourself seriously. You don't need everyone you love to understand the life you're trying to build. You don't have to exhaust yourself to prove that you care. And trusting yourself doesn't mean you'll never be wrong. It means knowing that if something doesn't work out exactly the way that you hoped, you're not going to abandon yourself because of it. You'll learn, you'll adjust, and you'll try again. I'm still learning how to do that too. And I think for me, this season is becoming less about forcing everything to happen as quickly as possible and more about trusting that the internal choices, patience, consistency, and actually listening to myself can take me somewhere that constant survival never could. If you want to keep having conversations like this with me, subscribe and stick around. We're figuring out a lot of this together, and I will see you in the next video.